This is Michael Popok reporting for Legal AF. We have a new violation of the Constitution by Donald Trump that's now been reported by the House Oversight Committee Democrats. Not only has Donald Trump lined his pockets with the profits from hotels in and around the District of Columbia by requiring foreign dignitaries to stay at his hotels, but now we've learned just recently that on the way out of the White House, apparently in the U-Haul that he took with him to Mar-a-Lago, he took with him hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably millions of dollars worth of gifts that were given to him and his family by the Saudi Arabians, by the Crown Prince, by the Chinese premier and president, by the Chinese government. These things included a oversized oil painting of himself and at least 17 other gifts by the Saudi Crown Prince, totaling about $50,000. By the way, these amounts of money that I'm giving are really on the low end and low balling it, because there's no like department store you can go comparatively shop for foreign dignitary gifts. You know, this Afghan rug, this oil painting, this Oriental vase, this sword from the 14th century, and all these things that these presidents get. Now, every president has gotten them. And under the U.S. Constitution, as Jamie Raskin, the constitutional scholar within the Oversight Committee, has reported, the very first anti-bribery law ever to exist in our democracy is baked into the U.S. Constitution in the Emoluments Clause. A little known clause most of us didn't pay attention to in social studies or history class, but that exists. And let's remember exactly what the Emoluments Clause says. If you look particularly at Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the U.S. Constitution, that's the starting and ending point. The Founding Fathers were very concerned about presidents or any elected official holding high office taking anything of value. Really didn't matter the amount, could be $5, $1, or in this case, maybe $1 million worth of stuff from foreign governments who would have influence over the policy of America. And so what we have is the Emoluments Clause, which reads, no person holding any office of profit or trust under the terms thereunder shall, without the consent of Congress, accept any present, any gift, any emolument, any office or title of whatsoever from any king, prince, or foreign state. That's how serious the Founding Fathers took bribery and attempted bribery, but not to Donald Trump. To Donald Trump, these gifts were his personal stake. He didn't report it to the State Department as he's required to do, as every president before him did. Certainly every Democratic president did. You can take some of the stuff with you. You just have to report it properly to the State Department and ultimately get congressional approval, of which he did none of those things. Why? Because there's never been a rule that's ever been created around the presidency or around criminal conduct that this president, ex-president, hasn't found a way to break. It doesn't think applies to him. And that's what Jamie Raskin said on the Oversight Committee this week. He said, we're not going to be able to get this resolved in a court of law, right? I sit at the intersection of law and politics and report on these things. Here, lawsuits are not going to work. Donald Trump is no longer in office, and the U.S. Supreme Court, as recently as January of 2022, has already ruled that if Donald Trump's not in office, then any attack on him under the Constitution, under that Emoluments Clause I just read, is moot, meaning he's no longer president, so we no longer bring these claims against him because you're out of time. The Supreme Court purposely waited until he left office because these lawsuits against him related to his hotels and the amount of profit he was making on the backs of these foreign dignitaries that were forced and compelled to stay in these hotels. All of that, those suits were filed while he was still president. But the Supreme Court, to do a solid for their MAGA president, stretched it out so long that they just waited another month, waited for him to leave office after Joe Biden beat him, and then said, oh, this is moot, and then miraculously ripped the precedent from the lower courts off the books under a process that they use called vacatur, where these rulings by like the Second Circuit in New York and other places no longer exist. So there's no bad rulings against Donald Trump related to emoluments. Yet we have another example of him flouting the rules and the constitutional requirements and taking with him up to, let's say, $1 million or more worth of grift with him out the door. So Jamie Raskin's point is we have to create stronger guardrails as the oversight committee over democracy so that somebody like Donald Trump doesn't accidentally or on purpose knock over these guardrails, these Jersey barriers, so to speak, and, commit his criminal conduct. That's what the Oversight Committee should be looking at, not at Hunter Biden's laptop, not to see how Hunter Biden made money while he was a lawful American citizen and who got a cut of his, if they worked for him, who got a cut of his profits from his business. Let's focus on the grifter in chief and his family. Where's the Oversight Committee on Jared Kushner making billions of dollars while he was still in working for Donald Trump and Donald Trump was still president for countries like in Saudi Arabia, like in Dubai, that wanted to curry favor with Donald Trump while he was president and when he was leaving. So that's the point. That's the point of this $1 million theft. Donald Trump did the exact same thing. His chief of protocol never reported to the State Department these gifts. So the State Department couldn't evaluate whether there was influence peddling against Donald Trump at the time. They waited for the revelation to come out after he left office, making the lawsuits moot, leaving it to Congress, now led on the House by the MAGA Republicans, not to do a darn thing. Same exact thing that got us into the Mar-a-Lago mess, where he had obligations as president to turn over official records, presidential records, to the National Archive and make a complete listed inventory. Didn't do that either. Doesn't like lists, doesn't like inventories, doesn't like following the law or the rules. And then it's left to Democrats to clean up behind the elephant, either through lawsuits if they can, always blocked by this right-wing majority of the Supreme Court, or in passing legislation, which they're now going to have to wait another year and a half when they take back the House. But that's the reporting now. Let's say upwards of $1 million of gifts from foreign dignitaries, including the Chinese, including Saudi Arabia, against Donald Trump, given to Donald Trump while he was in office, that we're just learning about now, not properly reported, no congressional permission given for Donald Trump to take those gifts. And they're now in Mar-a-Lago, including a giant oil painting that is sitting in Mar-a-Lago and probably is on the video related to the Mar-a-Lago search warrant and search locker issue there. So this is all coming back around. I do these hot takes almost every day at the intersection of law and politics. And on Wednesdays and Saturdays, I co-anchor a podcast on the MeidasTouch network called Legal AF, where we do about 5 or 6 of these topics midweek and at the weekend on all of that. The other co-anchors, Ben Meisalas, Karen Freeman-Agnifilo, do hot takes like I do during the day. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on YouTube and you can follow us on all the podcast platforms. For me, you can follow me on social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.